Welcome to Strength Chat Podcast, presented by Kabuki Strength. Introducing your hosts, Chris Duffin, the mad scientist of strength, Rudy Cadlow, mature athlete and coach, and the wizard of training himself, Brandon Sen.
Welcome to Strength Chat. Thanks, Andre. You needed that. You like the sound of that, Matt? That's my voice.
Echo.
Welcome to Strength Chat with your host, the mad scientist of strength, myself, Chris Duffin. To my right, the one and only, our mature athlete and coach, Dr. Rudolph. And to my left, the man I hate today because he's wearing a sweater that I should have. He stole. It says Kabuki Strength on it. It looks brilliant, even on his fatty self.
You know what I noticed today?
What?
Your arms look exceptionally small. They're still bigger than your calves, though.
You're the one that writes my training plan and refuses to put arm work in. I have to sneak my arms in. Just because you have small arms does not.
I'm trying to bring the rest of the gym to my level.
I know this. I know.
We can all be equal.
I guess that's what I get, Matt, for when I let my training out to Brandon here.
Oh yeah, no, you're going to look like me soon.
He wants me to have small arms. Yes.
Well, you'll have small calves too if Brandon keeps training you.
So today we're really excited to have on Matt Wenning. So Matt is he's a very well experienced powerlifter, coach, and I don't know what else to say about him other than he's quite a figure in the strength training world for the content that he produces, the people that he works with, and I'll just start by letting Matt do a little bit of intro, about your background. I know that you've got quite a bit of education and experience, and what I love and what we'll probably spend quite a bit of time talking about today is the non-athletes, I guess, that you work with. I would still call them athletes, but I just I love the way that strength training and that it's being used outside of our powerlifting type world now. The methodologies that we've employed and learned around movement and loading, and you've had some great success with that. So before we get into that, tell us a little bit about kind of your background and how you got to be where you're at today, Matt.
I just started in a small town in Indiana called Muncie, and was fortunate enough to be around a couple of guys that were really good lifters at the time. So the guy that taught me to bench press could bench press 500 pounds raw at 185 pounds body weight. So this was the guy I first saw when I first walked into the YMCA.
And that set some standards.
So I got deconditioned to what weight looked like on the bar at a very, very young age, just to say that. And another older guy by the name of Jim Dawson that was a 740-pound deadlifter in 1975. And at that time, at 242, that was a monster pull.
Not many people were pulling that back then. Yeah, there was not a lot of 800-plus pound pullers.
No, so I got really lucky that even though I was from a small town that was barely under or over 100,000 people, that there were a couple of really seasoned veteran lifters that, although weren't highly educated, such as myself, in biomechanics or strength conditioning or any of that stuff, they knew right from wrong and started me off at the right path at about 13 years old. The reason I actually got into lifting was I was in a car accident as a child at 6 years old, and I was in a wheelchair for almost a year to a year and a half. Broke my pelvis and my legs in anywhere from 6 to 8 places on one leg and 4 to 5 places on the other. So I was fucked up. And when I got to football, 7th grade year, I realized that my leg power was lower than the other kids, and my strength level wasn't as good. So being a little bit more outreached, I went to the local YMCA and didn't know what I was doing, but I was training legs, and that's when Tim and Jim saw me and said, "Hey, this kid's fucking huge." And I was 175 pounds in 7th grade, but I wasn't fat. I was a big fucker, So they saw me and go, "Man, this guy's built for powerlifting." So I started training with them, and that's kind of how it started. And then fortunate enough that when I went to Ball State University, not even knowing it at the time, they had some of the top professors in the world in strength conditioning. They actually had guys that were working under Vladimir Zatsiorsky at Penn State and had moved to Ball State because we had NASA contracts for figuring out how to keep astronauts from losing so much muscle mass in anti-gravity. So my undergraduate and graduate years were very blessed by being around a lot of these guys. So just the cards fell the right way. And they saw a lot of interest in me because I was super strong, but I was reaching out and looking for better ways to train. And then that kind of led to utilizing and learning a lot of the Soviet methods and Zatsiorsky's writing and Verkhoshansky's writing and Mel Siff and all those guys. So I got introduced to that knowledge way before my prime.
So at Ball State, did you continue with football or just went in high school? Or?
I got a full ride to play nose guard at Ball State and a few other schools. And I had to make a choice right out of high school if I wanted to go lift at not the IPF World Championships, but something similar to it. And I decided that I like powerlifting better than football, even was getting some full rides, which was good for me. I look back at it now and it was risky because I wanted to be a powerlifter at that time, which obviously no scholarships are involved in that. But I also wanted to be, try to get school paid for. So how I worked through that is right out of high school, I went and got certified as a welder. And I worked in maintenance in a hospital on the weekends because the maintenance guys didn't want to work. So I was a skilled labor guy on the weekends. And then that helped me pay for school. And then I was able to go to school and volunteer in the weight room as an assistant strength coach undergraduate and build up that repertoire with the strength coaches and the athletic department. So by the time I got to my master's, they gave me a GA spot and then all my school was paid for. So I got basically a higher level scholarship. And I knew that's what I was going to have to do because talking with John Torring at the Colts, I believe he still works there, but he was there when I was in high school. He told me, hey, you're going to have to get a master's degree if you want to be a strength conditioning coach, and you're just not tall enough to play football in the pros. So knowing that was kind of like, well, I'm only 6 foot. I needed to be about 6'3" to play nose guard. In the pros, I kind of already had my mindset that I just need to get a master's degree and get as strong as shit. So that's what I tried to do and did the best I could. So,
I bet there was a lot of offensive centers in that conference that were glad, though, that you made that choice.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there was high school. It was just crazy. I could just throw people over. But I was benching, and not overestimating. I benched 490, whatever the kilos were, almost 500 pounds as a senior. And by that time, my legs had caught up, and my deadlift and my squat were I squatted closer to 700, right at 19.
So can you? We lost you for a second there. How much did you squat in high school?
I squatted 661 in high school, and literally a freaking belt, and deadlifted closer to 700 right before I turned 20. Those are the numbers.
Yeah, I would not have wanted to be on the other side of the field from you in high school. No, not at all.
You always hear about people talking about how strong they were in high school, but I actually had the records to show it. You know what I mean? So it was pretty cool. But there were a couple guys in high school that I worked out with on the football team that were actually pretty strong. But at that time, getting up to that strength level, I hadn't been introduced to the Soviet method, so I built everything on repetition method. So I remember when I went out to get looked at by some college football teams, we did like a kind of like a combine thing. And I did 225 for 48 reps in high school. So, I mean, that's how we built strength up at that time.
That's crazy,
so I think that was what anybody did in college. And I did that at 18. But to be fair, bench was my genetic gift. I mean, for some reason, bench press, I just could train it and I would just get stronger. But the deadlift and the squat, I had to literally work my balls off to get those up to
Well,
good
I
numbers.
suspect that that car accident as a child set you back a bit on your leg strength.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would imagine so. So that's kind of how I got started, and that's how it ended up. And not playing football and going to powerlifting worked for me, but I would imagine that would not work for everybody. So,
what age were you, Matt, when you peaked in powerlifting?
What's that?
So you said you have some incredible records in a total of 2660 or something. What age were you at that point?
When I hit 2665 in full gear, I was 28 years old. So I had been training for almost 15 years before I broke my first world record. And then after that, I broke the world record in the squat when I was 30. I did 1197.5 in 2011 with Ed Cohen wrapping my knees and calling depth in Chicago. And then totaled one of the higher subtotals raw in 2014 at 294 pounds body weight, squatted 832, which was the world record squat in just a belt, and then bench 606, which was one of the highest 3-lift and full meet bench presses in the world at that time. Because that was a meet I beat Andre Metchliev in bench, and he outweighed me by like 70 pounds. But that's kind of my big thing. And right now I have a 2204 total, which is, I believe, the second or third highest total in the 308 class of all time raw. So I'm one of the few guys that's done the equipment and done the raw stuff, but was able to switch at a young enough age that I was able to still produce big numbers. You know, I switched off from gear when I was about 33, 34. Right now I'll be 38 this year. So I'm not a spring chicken, but I'm not too old to where I think when I pulled the gear off. And that's what I try to tell people is I used to tell people all the time when I was hit these huge geared numbers that 60, 70% of my training was with just a belt. I didn't believe in having that gear on constantly. So when I did that 1197 squat, I squatted 765 with 200 pounds of chain with it off the ground at the top with just a belt.
Yeah, I think you and I are two of the few guys in the sport now that have both been accomplished both in multiply and raw lifting because we've been around long enough. And it's definitely interesting. I think you probably benefited quite a bit because my experience with a lot of the multiply guys, it wasn't the multiply lifting, but a lot of them spent too much time playing with gear that they didn't actually spend time like lifting weights was the big problem. And that was disadvantageous to them, you know, because you got to train.
Yeah. Huge. And I think to be fair, you know, and looking back on it now is that the guys that taught me the gear, which was Chuck Vogelpool and George Halbert, we had a lot of training that was completely raw, and I watched those guys do things in minimal or no gear that was just amazing. I watched George Halbert bench 625 weighing 230 pounds raw. Now it was touch and go, but I mean, you show me some guys that can do that shit and you don't see it, you know?
Yep.
And Chuck, I've seen Chuck do stuff in circuit maxes that would have calculated out to 1,270 to 1,300 pound squats. I mean, he did if you don't know much about bands, it won't mean much, but I watched him do 855 in plate weight with 2 blues and a green on each side and just a pair of briefs and a belt, which is 14 something at the top, and fucking smoked it. And like some of that shit that I saw was, you know, at those era days, those guys were strong with or without the gear, where I think when I started to hang up the gear in about 11 and 12, I started realizing that you had dudes that could bench 900 plus or 1,000 that couldn't even do 455 raw. And that's kind of where I was like, this is turning into way too much smoke and mirrors.
Right.
But the era of Gary Frank and Andy Bolton and those guys, they were legit crazy strong. I watched them do things in warm-up rooms at the WPO that were just ungodly. I watched Andy Bolton deadlift 600 and pull it so fast that it came up almost to his neck and let it fall on the ground just to make everybody freak out. That was, I think he pulled like 948 or something that day in a full meet. You know, I mean, just crazy stuff. But yeah, for me, it was always being strong raw. I felt like I couldn't call myself a great powerlifter unless I could walk into any gym with no equipment on and smoke everybody in there at pretty much any lift. And, you know, I think in 2012, 13, and 14, it started to get a little out of hand. Guys were doing crazy numbers. You take all the gear off and couldn't compete with a high school kid, you know.
That's when the shift started happening. Is it, you know, when that started, you got, you know, a 350-pound bencher doing like 700 pounds. It's like, okay, you know, like we got to get back to just like lifting some weights and getting strong.
So you're telling me I should get into multiply gear? It sounds like an excellent 700. Doesn't sound too bad to me.
So you mentioned some big names there, Matt. When you were, you know, in your mid-20s or approaching 28 and stuff, of those legends, did you have a guy that you tried to emulate or that maybe worked with you closely, you tried to follow?
I'll tell you what, and it's not to bash any of those guys because they taught me so much, but I learned just as much watching those guys what to do as what not to do. So I will take the advantages of Chuck. Chuck Vogelpool was probably the most intense lifter I have ever seen in my life. That guy would be so ramped up to come in and squat and deadlift that he literally, you could not talk to him. I mean, like even as a training partner for him for years, he would have that certain look in his eye. You just stay the fuck away from him. You know, he was ready to explode. And George Halbert taught me so much because he was so calculated with the things that he did. And I know Louis Simmons and a lot of those guys get a lot of credit for coming about with bands and chains and how to use them. But in my opinion, George Halbert was the one that figured out the tensions and the speeds because he played with them every week, constantly and bench pressed, 766 at 242, which when he did that was insane.
Oh, yeah, when he did that, nobody was benching that much. Like, it was, yeah.
Yeah, nobody. 700 bench at that time was no man's land. And I watched him calculate those bands with deer scales and utilizing all kinds of stuff. And Louis sat back and watched it and wrote it about it. But in reality, George was the one that put the time and effort into making those bands work. But I also watched George and Chuck massively overtrain. So when Chuck and I decided to do our own style, we would squat together, but then everything else after that I did on my own and he did on his own. And I watched him massively overtrain, and I just trained as hard as I needed to, and my numbers kept climbing and climbing and climbing, and his started to stagnate, and that's when he learned that he was overtraining himself. So I think even at that age, he was 41, 42 at the time, he started to realize that he was overtraining, and I was figuring out how to optimally train. And same thing with George. I think he realized with a lot of that stuff that, you know, you hit the big stuff and you just try to stay healthy. So I watched George figure out how to stay healthy for a long period of time, and I watched Chuck teach me what it was going to take intensity-wise to get really, really good. But I also learned from a lot of those guys in that era of what not to do and to make sure if you start feeling fucked up to back down and recover. And it's not, you know, that's where I come up with the saying, and I say it all the time, but it's not what you can do, it's what you can recover from. And so I try to only lay one brick at a time on each training day. I try not to kill myself every day. And I think that's why, you know, I've been at least top 5 in the world for almost 12 years and, top 1 in the world at least 3 or 4 times. And that's because I know when to turn the throttle full go, and I know when to back it down and let my body heal up too.
It takes some time to learn for some of us, especially, aggressive lifters. Like I know myself, it took a long time to kind of learn that. Brandon will argue I still have.
I don't think you've learned that.
Yeah, Brandon will argue that I still have not learned that.
Go deload. Okay, I'll pull 900.
What?
That's a good idea.
It's just 900.
Matt, do you think that you stayed injury free for a long time? Do you think those lessons you learned is really from just years and years of training? Do you have any systems that you use, any auto regulation tools that you use to kind of get a marker for your body and when it's time to pull out? Or do you have clients who it might be kind of hard to communicate that intuitiveness that you experience with those clients? How do you go about managing that? I get that stress tolerance for them.
Yeah, I think the older I get, the more I realize how important. And that's even though I had an opening. That's why I've been doing a lot of work with Charles Poliquin, because I feel he's got a huge grasp on recovery tools. That's why I've been big into gua sha, big into acupressure points and things like that. I've seen it do amazing things in the classes that I've took from him, those kinetic chain classes. So I've been working a lot on that. I think a lot of just staying injury free, like I say is it's a feel for sure, but a lot of it too is proper programming. I realized that every 3 weeks the training has to come down in something. So what I always do is I say this: if you don't make your training come down, it will make it come down for you, either through injury or overtraining or whatever it may be. So what I do is listen for the first signs, and for me the first signs are my sleep starts to get fucked up. If I can't sleep right, I start backing off my training a little bit and I stay out of overtraining. If my appetite starts to get screwed up, I know something's coming on. I back off my training a little bit. Everything comes back to normal in like 2 days. If I say, no, I'm going to muscle through this shit and I'm not going to listen to my body, eventually in about 5 to 6 days later, I either get super fucking sick or I start getting these little tiny nagging problems that I have to deal with. So what I've learned is if I just listen to what my body's initially telling me, I can back down. Now, there's other ways you can do that. You can do that with a hand dynamometer, and if you can't hit a certain percentage of your maximal hand strength, that's what the Russians used to use for measuring overtraining, and you can also do it with heart rate regulation. You can get up in the morning, and if your heart rate, I think, is above 3 or 4 BPM of what it naturally is, your body's telling you you're overtraining. How accurate some of that stuff is, I can't tell you, but I know that hand dynamometer is pretty straight on. I've used that before to test and see. And if my hand strength is not within 95% of my best, I back off what I do of something. I may still have a max effort day, but I may do less accessories. Or if it's a speed day, I may do only half of my speed sets. But that's kind of what I use for regulation, if that's kind of what you're asking.
Yeah, I've heard of measurements like the grip strength test. It seems like a lot of I would be interested to hear your findings with that. A lot of the stuff that I've read on that is it tends to get skewed the stronger an individual is. So you take a really strong strength athlete and perform that with them. They're strong enough to be able to sometimes possibly manipulate the test. Have you ever found that to be true with yourself?
Not with myself, but honestly, like I said, when you do those tests, you got to do it balls to the wall every time to see where it's at. Another test you can use, I've never seen the validity of it, is like the ruler test, where you take the ruler for your thumb and your first finger and you put it at like 6-inch mark, and if you can't catch it within like 1.5 inches, your CNS is overtrained. I've also seen some shit on that sound pretty interesting. I've never personally used that before, but I can just feel when I'm overtrained. But with my clients, I make them back down every 3 weeks, whether they want to or not. Same thing with my firemen. Same thing with my military guys, especially military. And if they're very, very in shape firemen, because not only do they have to lift weights really hard, but they also have to do a certain portion of cardio or anaerobic conditioning. And they also have to be prepared to take runs throughout the entire night, picking up heavy people, taking them to the hospital, those types of things. So the regulation on that has to be even more precise. So I'm always what I call a 9 out of 10 guy. So if they come into the gym, I try to have them give me a 9 out of 10, never a 10 out of 10, especially if they're on duty. And that always seems to keep it in a baseline. But every 3 weeks, I always drop off something out of my training. I either take the max out, take the speed out, or drastically drop the duration of the workout and try to get everything done in like as much as I can in like 30, 40 minutes. And that's kept me away from all of it, honestly. So
you, based on your experience, you mentioned earlier before you actually got started that you've developed a couple of different training styles that are almost antithetical, but you've had success incorporating both. Talk about the adding Conjugate to your strength stuff.
Okay, so like 10 years ago, getting ready to hit the big world record, multiply total, break Paul Childress's record, and I was 100% Louis-style Conjugate. We had a circuit max phase, but we never squatted straight weight. And if we did, it was never full depth. It was always just to get everything dialed in, the gear dialed in. So surprisingly, mine and Chuck's and everybody else I lifted with technique was amazing at those meets, but I think a lot of people emulated that and never had great success with it. One of those reasons may have been is that my background was tons of volume with straight bar. So when I was at the YMCA, we didn't have safety bars, we didn't have camber bars, we didn't have all that shit. So it was straight bar, straight bar, straight bar every week. So my baseline of straight bar stuff was like ingrained in my head. So it was good for me at that time to mix and match. But what I started to realize when I went raw is that I had to have a certain amount of feel for that straight bar, straight weight, because I couldn't rely on the gear to give me any kind of spring. It was more of a muscle reaction type thing. So what I played with is I talked to Ed Cohen. We're really good friends. And he has known me ever since I was a kid, maybe 16 years old, when he came to one of my first meets. And he even saw potential in me at the time. And I sat down with him, and we were talking about his style of training, which is very linear periodization, and my style of training, which is very Conjugate. And he's like, well, why don't you make some type of a hybrid training protocol where you use some kind of shit that I do and some kind of shit that does. That way everything kind of fires together. And I was thinking, well, shit, that might be a really good idea. So what I did was I put when I would get ready for competitions, and this has been the same way for the last probably 6 or 8 years, is say week 12, I'll do 80% for 5 reps. So not crazy, but not light either. So let's say 675 for 5. I'll do 675 for 5 reps. Then the next week and the next week, I'll do very different bars, chains, bands, boxes, whatever. Well, then week 9, I'll do 84% for like 4 or 5. Then week 6, I'll do around 88% for 3, and then I'll do 92% for 2, and then I'm ready for the meet. And for some reason, when I first played with that, just by luck, I figured out that was dialing in. It was telling my body, hey, this is what I want from you, but it was giving them enough variation in between those days that I didn't overtrain the straight bar, which was very important for a 3-lift guy because my shoulders stayed healthy to bench. Okay. So like if you're just a squatter and your bench sucks ass, well, you might be able to squat with a straight bar all the time. But that's why I talked with Kaz at Swiss conference when we were there, Chris, and I asked him, what was the main reason why you quit powerlifting and went to strongman? He's like, I couldn't get under the bar anymore. My shoulders and my pecs and everything got so fucking big, I couldn't fit under a normal IPF bar. Well, I started realizing that I was starting to have problems fitting under a fucking pro bar. Well, if I rotated a safety bar, then a camber bar, then a straight bar, then a safety camber straight bar, what I started realizing is that it protected my shoulders. It allowed me even 2 days later to train the shit out of my bench, and I never had shoulder problems because I wasn't constantly wrenching them into a straight bar.
Yeah,
which I think is why.
Yeah, you know, we're a big proponent here of not killing the straight bar. Like anybody knows, you put 20 years of heavy straight bar work, and your shoulders are going to be jacked if you're not doing a whole lot of work to maintain them.
Yeah, because there's no way that you can squat those kind of big monster weights with straight bars and not crank on your shoulders when that weight's sitting on you, because your body's just going to go into full tension mode anyway. And that's why I think like your Duffalo bar is a good idea, because it gives you that extra 2 inches of movement downward that takes that pressure off your shoulder, but it doesn't have so much difference that it doesn't feel as transferable.
Yep. Yeah,
so
like you take the giant camber bar or stuff like that. I mean, they're great variations, but they're a variation that is a different squat, right? I mean, it's got a different feel, different groove, all that. So Yep.
So that's what I figured out by default. I started noticing my bench would keep climbing. My squat was progressing because it wasn't overtrained in one particular area. So I kind of mixed the best of both worlds, and I've been using that same style of system for a while and using it with a lot of different people and seeing pretty good results with it. So it kind of gives you that feel of the straight bar and that specific work that would be like an Ed Cohen or Chico style program, and then the mixture of the middle, which keeps you from overtraining and giving the joints and spine and all those things a little bit of a different tension pressure point so that you don't overtrain the exact same motor pattern constantly.
Do you think that using that much variety in your training because I know you've worked with a huge amount of athletes from all different skill levels, have you ever found that athletes maybe new to the sport or people who haven't had as much competition experience, that they lack some technical proficiency when you expose them to that much varied stimulus? Or do you find that when it comes time to compete that they're still able to dial it in?
That's a good question. And I'll try to answer it as good as I can with getting my point across. Long term, it's 100% the way to go, in my opinion. Short term, it has some setbacks, as in you have that difference and you don't feel the exact same specificity constantly to master. But here's the question that I propose. In a tactical environment, i.e. fire, military, police, anything, or sporting event, do we want an athlete that is only good with a straight bar, or do we want athletes that are good in multiple faucets? So my point is that a straight bar has a great amount of strength and transfer to many things, but I would rather take an athlete that's good with 20 different variations than an athlete that's only good with one. That means he's mastered one environment. That means he's not that good of an athlete. Yeah. So in my opinion, if I have a fire department and those guys can squat with chains, bands, boxes, narrow stance, wide stance, different kinds of bars and different kinds of positions, and they can slowly over time master them all, their strength is transferable to what they want. Versus saying, well, yeah, maybe your straight bar squat only went up 20 pounds when we could have got it to go up to 100. But in those professions, my job is to not make them as strong as they can possibly be in a powerlifting sense. I need to make them strong in an entire realm of different angles and positions, because that's what they're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, and that's a good time to transfer topics a little bit, because I'm really interested in, the tactical work that clients that you work with your police, fire, military. Because I love, hearing the stories about the impact that you've had on not just improving their strength and performance, but reducing injuries and even going and actually reducing their insurance costs and stuff of that nature. So. Let's spend a little time on that. How long have you been involved working in that environment?
I started working with 3rd Battalion Ranger Regiment at Fort Benning, Georgia in 2006. So
how'd that come about, man?
That came about by me being listed as one of the top lifters in the world in a bullshit Flex magazine. And one of the captains of the Ranger Regiment saw it but he also saw I had a master's in biomechanics and was like, we need to get this fucking guy down here and show us some stuff. And I was like, I get this phone call and it's like, hey, this is Captain so-and-so down here at Ranger Regiment. Would you be interested in coming down and just taking a look at our stuff and our guys and giving us some feedback? And I'm like, well, shit, I guess. I'm like, I've never done anything tactical. I'm just a meathead powerlifter with a decent degree, but I'll come down and look at it. So I go down there and look at it with open eyes. I don't look at it as a powerlifter. I don't look at it as a biomechanist. I just look at it as a person going, what do I do with my own training? With my own training, I find my weaknesses and I fix them. That's all I do. I mean, I find if my lower back's weak, it doesn't matter how strong my legs are. And if my upper back's weak, it doesn't matter how strong my pecs are. It's going to affect my lifts. So I go in there and look at that problem at the same aspect and the same angle mentally. And what I find is these guys can run their asses off, but they can't even hardly deadlift 1.5 times body weight. So then I'm like, okay, this is kind of fucked up. Well, then I go and look at the injury rates. So I go to the physical therapists and the orthopedics and all the guys that work with them. I said, I want to see all your injury data from like the last 2 years. Ironically, the injuries that we saw were lower back, knee, and shoulder. But what I started realizing is they had no upper back, they had no hamstrings, and their lower backs were shit because they didn't have any glute activation. And, let's just ruck march with a 60-pound pack for fucking 25 miles a week, and that's going to fix it. Well, you start realizing that actually doesn't fix it. That makes it worse. You're moving forward, and your ass turns under your body with quad dominant movement and no glute activation. So there at first, because these guys are looking at me, and at this time I weigh like 310 pounds, so I'm fucking huge. These dudes are 160 pounds, and they're not listening to me. But just by chance, I brought my girlfriend at the time. She weighed 135 pounds, so she was smaller than they were. And I had her work out with some of the top dudes, and she fucking annihilated them. So now imagine these guys think they're king shit because they live in this little dungeon basement weight room. They don't see people that are for real strong. The internet wasn't super huge as far as, Instagram in 2006, Facebook wasn't big. You couldn't get on there and see like Don Reinhold's 900-pound squat and figure out, oh, I'm really weak, right? So they didn't know. Well, my girlfriend out deadlifts them all, and she weighs 135. Well, while she does that, the main general's standing there. And I don't even know this guy's the main general because he comes down in street clothes, and he's like, how are the boys? And I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. I'm like, be honest with you? And he's like, yeah. I said, these guys are weak as shit. And he gets beat red, and he leaves. And then my one guy comes up to me, one of the guys that liked me, he goes, man, dude, that was the 2-star general. He fucking just told him we all sucked. So he went back to his office, and 20 minutes later, I deadlifted them, which, that's pretty badass for a 135-pound girl. She pulls close to 400. He calls me into his office, and he's like dead silent for it seemed like an hour, but probably like 5 minutes. And he goes, I've had all these people come in and tell me these guys are fit, these guys are in shape, and you come down here with your girlfriend and you out deadlift all my guys and you make them all look like shit. And I'm like, dude, I'm not here to bust your balls. I'm just telling you that there might be a better way to train that we can save some of these guys. Because by the time they get up to Ranger Regiment, they're worth about $1.5 to $3 million a piece in training and time and effort. But they have no conception of that when they start training them to get them ready. I'm like, look, these guys at this level, if they've already made it this far, we don't have to see if they're tough. We know they are. So now let's train them fucking smart. So what I started doing was I took all their strength training stuff and threw it out the fucking window. It was all like ground-based hammer strength shit and machines. That's all they were doing because some doctor told them that was better than lifting free weight. So we trashed that shit. Then I cut their running down almost in half, maybe even a little more than half. And then I made them get a bunch of reverse hypers, a bunch of glute ham raises. I got all the equipment that they needed where I knew they were weak. Low back, knees, upper back. All their training was based around what I saw in the injury data. Once we plugged that shit in for a year and a half, injury rates dropped like 35, 40%, and everybody scored at least 15 points higher on their PT tests. With doing literally 30, 40% total time and work, but it's because they were training for their injury rates versus just training for bullshit. They go, well, this is the way we've done it since the 70s, blah, blah, blah. I don't give a shit what you were doing in the 70s. Well, this is your injury rates.
Yeah,
this is your
look at the data and develop a plan based on that, right?
Yeah. How many sit-ups can you do in a minute, right?
Yeah, right. So, and they, so what we did was my bosses all moved around and changed different positions. I got a call from that same general, and he was in charge of 4th Infantry at Fort Carson. So he went in charge from being in charge of 700 Ranger Regiment guys to 6,000 4th Infantry ground troops. This is a big deal. He calls me and goes, "Do you think you can implement the same system out here with 6,000 guys?" I'm like, "Fuck, dude, I don't know." So I had to think about, how do I manage 6,000 guys, right? And I had an unlimited budget as far as equipment, within reason, and all this other stuff. So what I did was I made pods. So they had these huge containers that had to have 3 squat racks per about 50 guys, 3 squat racks, 3 reverse hypers, 3 glute ham raises, kettlebell fit in that pot. I can't all remember. It was like 2011. But I got everything I could possibly get, and then I handed them all programs based on the same weak points, because when I checked their PT and orthopedic data, it was the same injuries because they don't train them. So I started making them change all that, and then that showed huge results. Well, at that point, 10th Group Special Forces was out there. They started catching notice, and then 82nd Airborne was having all kinds of back problems. They started catching notice because guess what? 82nd Airborne divisions are the worst. They train exactly the same way they train since World War II, which is ridiculous, right? But you would completely 100% shit yourself if you saw the data out there. I was out there for 30 days fixing their stuff, and in 30 days and 5,000 ground troop guys that I was just in charge of, there were 150 permanent back injuries. Wow. 150 a month. That's insane. But here's why you don't hear about it, is because once a guy gets injured, the money that comes out of that problem doesn't come from the United States Army anymore. It goes to the VA. So here's what I'm saying is their injuries are not connected to their data. That's why they deal with it. But I started connecting the data to the injuries and putting it back on, pressure back on the guys in charge. And that's when they started realizing the damage they were doing. Make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So once a guy gets hurt, he goes to that's a different budget. That's not us. So it was easy to hide. So what you're starting to realize is it was a huge problem.
No accountability, right?
There's no accountability. So what I started doing is just, I guess I was a pioneer of looking at injury rates and trying to change the training based on what I saw to make sure that those areas weren't the weak links anymore. Same thing I do with my own training.
So are you still pretty involved with that, or is that just something that's in place that you're managing?
Some of my bosses have retired, and some of them have moved up into paper positions. So like right now, my big guy, he's in the Pentagon, and he moves papers right now. He'll be back in charge of something massive in about a year and a half. So the problem with the military is, unless the military would be able to give up their entire physical training protocols and outsource it, it's hard to control, because what they do is people that are in charge of PT. But if you go, let's say you're in charge of 82nd Airborne, a certain division, you're only in charge there for 30 months, and then you transfer. So it's not stable. So I'll get a lot of contracts, and then I'll get no contracts. So what I started realizing is, well, shit, fire departments need this even more than military. And what I started realizing is that the fire departments, if you get a fire chief that gets along well with the trustees and gets along well with the community, he could be there for 15 or 20 years. So what I started doing was outreaching to the fire departments, and I started realizing that they needed the same style of training, obviously at a slightly less level because their overall fitness is not as high at first. I started realizing it was a lot more secure. So now I'm in charge of 6 fire departments in my area, and then I do a lot of consulting military stuff, but only when it comes up. But I don't go out and look for it because it's just not stable. If I said I'm only going to live off military contracts, I'd be broke as shit. I'd make 300,000 one. Yeah, I'd make 300,000 one year and 10,000 the next. We just can't sustain it.
Oh yeah. Are you doing any work with police as well, or just primarily fire department right now?
Mostly fire. I have police guys in my gym that are sergeants and captains in the area, but mostly fire department. And it's kind of just what fell in my hands. I'm sure it's like a lot of us. If you'd have told me 10 years ago that you were going to be known more for training fire departments than this, I'd have told you you're full of shit. But sometimes things just come up and you just go with the flow. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and I noticed that the firemen, and unlike, I'm sure police would be the same way, but they're really respectful of the stuff that I bring because they look me up and they realize, holy shit, this guy's working with us. They feel like, it's a privilege for them. So I have a different kind of respect for those guys. They know that I'm there to make them better and make them have a better time and feel better, so the job doesn't beat the shit out of them by the time they're 55, 60 years old. And that's kind of how it rolled, you know.
It's just as an impression, perhaps, but the military and fire, you think of those guys being in need of being in better shape and maybe having more endurance than police. You see so many police in the old story about the guys, at the donut shop, and I do see a lot of those guys that are not in shape, but yet they're first responders. Yeah. They got to chase guys. How about police? Do you see that as an opportunity?
It's an opportunity. I think you have the same problem in the fire department. I just don't think if they don't get called out on runs, you just don't see them. The problem is that any job that once you're hired in, your standards can be lowered without punishment, is you're going to see that problem. Another area of tactical expertise that has a major issue with that right now is the FBI. So the FBI is super hard to get into, but once you're in, it's like murder to get fired. So they have a lot of overweight FBI agents because the testing to get in is very hard, but once you're in, you don't test anymore. A lot of fire departments are that way. A lot of police departments are that way. The only police department that is not that way is the state police, especially in Ohio. I'm not so sure about other states, but Ohio State Police, if your neck to waist ratio is not within a certain realm, you have 6 months to fix it or termination. So you don't see fat state troopers in Ohio. They've been sued over it 5 or 6 times and won every time. So we know that if we were to set fitness standards or body fat percentage standards that they would hold up in court, it's just nobody has the sack to do it yet. But they will, because the insurance rates are getting too expensive.
Yep.
And that's where I'm starting to see the transition and change, but it's going to take somebody to want to step up and go, look, you guys aren't going to be fat anymore. You're not going to cost our taxpayers this kind of money. If you don't want to abide by these rules, that's fine, but go find a job at someplace else. But in civil service jobs, such as police, fire, and those types of things, those guys are more protected from things changing. So that's where I come in and have to massage it more and sell it to them. Hey, look, I'm here because, the department wants me here, but I'm also here to make sure that you get better so that you have a better retirement. Once they sense that level of commitment from me, that now it's not like, oh, shit, now we have to work out on duty. Oh, great, they're making us do something else. I'm like, no, this is to make sure that when you retire, you still have something left. You can still go play with your grandkids. You can do that. So it's a different motive that you have to attack from that area, because those guys, if they really didn't want to, they would not have to listen to me. It's not you're fired if you don't listen to Matt type thing. So I have to change the culture, which takes a long time.
So you're getting in their heads, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Finding the right motivation for them.
Yeah, you got to find the right motivation. And motivation to do a better job is sometimes not the best way when some people are there to just get a paycheck. But you tell them, hey, I'm going to save your knees and your back so you're not hurting when you retire, people tend to listen up.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a lot like, other coaching. You got to get buy-in. You could write the best program anyone's ever seen, but if you don't have buy-in, then it doesn't matter. Adherence is going to drop off. The will to actually, want to progress through, your means is going to drop off. So buy-in's huge in, any service-oriented job like that, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where it all comes full circle to me. Like when I was a kid and wanted to be a strength coach, I never wanted to tell an athlete or somebody else to do something that I haven't done at least to the absolute pinnacle of my ability. There's always going to be other people stronger than you, no matter how strong you are. But if you push yourself to the limit as long and as hard and as safely as you could, then I have all the respect for you in the world. But that's what made me want to be a strength coach, and also I think gave me an edge and gives me buy-in with these guys, is they're like, hey, Matt's not asking us to do anything he wouldn't do himself. I'm not some fat dude coming in saying, hey, you guys need to go do this, because I will pick it up and do it way better than you right now. Make sense?
Yep.
So those guys already have buy-in for me because they know I've done it and I've lived it. So there's a different level of respect, I think, than just having a degree alone. Yep.
Well, I love this story because it fundamentally, one of our big mottos is living better through strength, and that's. You're taking that out and reaching a population that's in need, that's not just a bunch of guys in the gym trying to lift more weights, right? And you're helping them do just that. You're helping them live better through strength. At the same time, saving the taxpayers money.
Yep.
And that's just a fabulous thing. And I think it's really awesome because that's a big gap in our society today is we have become so sedentary and, that's, teaching people the value of what load can do. Load as a teacher, load as a progressive, tool to grow better and stronger is, something that's missing today. And
and the biggest thing it ever taught me as a kid was patience. Being patient enough to see the result, because it's not a day-to-day process. It can be sometimes months and years before you see progression, but you have to learn to love the process. You have to learn to love the constant tension always. And that's just life. Most people that make a ton of money, I don't know where I read this or if maybe Paul Quinn or somebody told me, but most people in life that make a ton of money or are super strong, they can just handle more stress than other people. They can handle big business decisions, or they can handle big deadlifts, or they can do these things constantly and not let it psychologically beat them into shreds and quit and give up. And I think that's what lifting taught me as a small child, is that if I wanted to be somebody, it was going to take a long time and I was going to have to bust my ass because of those injuries and whatnot. So for me, it was like, school's going to take me 6 years to get a master's. I don't care. It took me 6 years to bench 500. Who cares?
Right.
That time's going to come and go anyway. So you might as well be the best you can be. So for me, at time, how long a goal took never was a problem for me, because I wasn't the best out of the gate. I had to work for everything, so that's how I look at it.
I think that's probably a really good note to end on today.
Yeah. I was just thinking we're starting to bump against time anyway, so that's
we have about 7 or 8 minutes. And you mentioned earlier you wanted to talk about velocity-based training a little bit. Did you want to touch base with that?
Yes. I mean, quickly, I think still to this day, people don't utilize a lot of speed training, or they don't utilize it correctly. If you were to look at my speed training, on the bench press, I only use 185 pounds, which is a little bit below 33%. But I use a certain amount of band tension. But I think that speed training, Louis used to write a lot about 0.7 meters per second. In my opinion, speed training needs to be around 1 meter per second. And the reason for that is not only because it's faster, that makes sense, but it separates farther away from the max effort day. So on my day, if I'm moving something at 1 meter per second, it's really, really fast. That means I can train really, really heavy the next day. If my speed training is a little too heavy, it affects my max day. So your speed training should help your max effort day, not detriment it. And I think that's where people get screwed up, because if they think, well, I don't see 3 plates on the bar, or I don't see this on the bar, I'm not getting any work in. Well, you hook in a accelerometer. I chose Paul. Paul Quinn came to one of my seminars, took it, which was a huge. I was super respectful that he wanted to come and listen to me, because I'm like, who the hell am I listening to compared to this guy? And he listened to my stuff, and I told him that I could move 185, a double red band, and 3 chains over 1 meter per second. And he's like, you're full of shit. He's like, I didn't see Adam Nelson do that. If you know Adam Nelson, he's like one of the best shot putters ever lived. And I hooked all that stuff up, and I did it at 1.15 meters per second, which is fucking blazing fast for a speed bench. Point is that your speed has to be real speed. I
think one issue that I've seen with people with speed work, though, is they get so focused on the speed that they compromise technique, maybe overextending at the shoulders, or, there's just they're watching that number only and compromising the movement itself to maximize that number.
Let me reiterate kind of what I say. So speed work is great, but here's what I think. And this is from working with guys that were firemen that never really lifted weights, and people in my gym I don't use speed work with people until they've trained for about 5 years. So that may explain why I think it works, but there are particular ramifications to getting up to that speed work to making it usable. Your technique has to be flawless, but
absolutely,
like I said, what are the major things to make technique break? Heavier, faster, more chaotic, or more fatigue?
Yep.
But most people only know heavier and fatigue. They don't know chaotic, or making it more difficult to stabilize, and they don't know to make it faster. Those are the two that are not used the most. They either make it tired or they make it heavier. So if you got those two other things playing in your ballpark, you can tend to not overtrain nearly as easy, and it's going to give you more of a mixture of training and give you a body, a break of joints. Obviously, if something's hard to stabilize, you're not going to be able to use near as much weight. So that could be a deload of maximal effort intent just because the max effort came from because you had to balance it, i.e. like a camber bar, right, with like hanging weights, or you guys have probably seen that on my Instagram where I'll take a camber bar and hang kettlebells from it. I've done 750 pounds like that, and it fucking about broke me in half, but that's not my max.
Right.
But it was my max in that.
That's your chaos. That's your chaos, though. That's where you're getting your chaos.
Right. So I think the thing of it is, quickly, is that people only tend to make things heavy and tired, but they forget to make things more unstable and make things more fast. But technique is important for all four to the most. It's more important than any four of those. You know, technique is always key, but you have to be able to stress your body in different ways constantly.
All right.
Great. Well, thank you. That's helpful. I think we are now buttoned up against our time right now. Brandon, do you have any follow-up comment on the VBT stuff?
Yeah, I think Matt uses it a little different than we do, and it really sounds like, speed work. I think a lot of people, when they think of speed work, they take, maybe just what they've seen, or, they don't really have a specific way to define it like you do. When you're talking about speed work, you're talking about really fitting that into a larger system as a whole. You mentioned having your speed work at a specific velocity because it helped you be better recovered for your max effort days. Those same speed parameters, if you fit it into a different system, maybe not as appropriate, but you might then adjust it. We use velocity a little bit differently, not in terms of just trying to move, quote unquote dynamic days or speed days as fast as we can, but we use it as a overall method for auto-regulation. So, if we define speed work for us, everything's speed work because we're trying to move it with maximal intent. And I think the biggest thing with dynamic work, speed work, velocity-based training, in order to do it properly, you have to have intent with it. And that's very well documented within the research. There was, I can't remember the researcher's name, but essentially they took the bench press and they took a control group that was just asked to bench press and a control group that was asked to put maximal force into the bar. And, across the board, the group that put maximal force into the bar gained more strength and improved over that same time period. So, to kind of close out, I think Matt would probably agree with this, but, the key with speed work, dynamic work, velocity-based training, whatever you want to define, I think the biggest thing is that we have intent to actually move the load. It's not just about moving light weights quickly, but in being intentful with that.
To back what you're saying, when I lay down on the speed bench to get ready to speed bench, I'm thinking in my head, this is 622, this is 632. Like, I'm not thinking this move it fast. I'm thinking that this is a heavy fucking weight that I got to get blasted for maximal intent. So even though it's faster, it's still the intent that I'm trying to move. I'm trying to put 632 pounds of force into the bar, but it only weighs 185.
Yep.
That makes sense.
It does. It's exactly the thought process.
Yep.
So, Matt, where can people find you at? Instagram, Facebook, your website?
Yeah, Instagram's Real Matt Wenning. So I don't know if there's any fakes out there, but Real Matt Wenning.
I was going to introduce you today as the Real Matt Wenning, just because I'm so used to seeing the Real Matt Wenning.
Yeah. And then, because somebody had already taken Matt Wenning, so I was trying to find them and tell them to turn their shit off, but I couldn't. So, obviously, Facebook, it's full, but I have a community page. So if you dig around, you'll find my Matt Wenning community page. My website is winningstrength.com, which is just my last name, strength.com. And then where you can order all my apparel is winningstrengthapparel.com, which we have some really badass tactical police, fire, military shirts, and then some of my gym shirts that we have there as well.
All right. And you've started selling a belt squat recently as well. Is that up on your website? How do people find out more info on that?
Yeah, it's up on the website. And what I found was I needed a piece of machinery that would give me a little bit of a break from squatting with a straight bar, but also let me still smash the shit out of my legs. So I designed the first one, kind of like you know how you tinker around with your own shit. I built my own in my garage at first, and then I put so much weight on it probably 5 years ago, I broke the fucker in half. So I figured out where it needed to be stronger and built it again. Then I figured out that how long the lever arm needed to be to match a 1-to-1 ratio to squatting. So when I squatted 865 in just the belt last year, I did 815 for 3 on that machine and about broke my fucking legs. Well, you can do 815 for 3. You can probably squat 865. It's unlike a pit shark and some of these others where you can put 1,000 pounds on, do it for 10. It's not going to mean anything. So I needed something that let me know how strong I was without putting a bar on my back.
Yep.
also with the type of clientele that I deal with, police, fire, military, some of them have a lot of neck, shoulder, and back problems. I needed a machine that they could still squat and get strong with if we were going through surgeries or had a shoulder problem or whatnot. And I got to also know how strong they were because the machine has more of a 1-to-1 ratio. So that's kind of why I built it, and that's why it's there. It's meant to withstand over 1,000 pounds. It's a fucking monster. But everybody that gets on it likes it. All the fire departments I work with, they all mandate that they have one because we have so many people with shoulder issues or back issues. It allows them to still get strong while we rehab those areas.
Excellent. Well, I love doing these podcasts, and it was a great experience on the call with you today. And found out a few tidbits of info, like I didn't know you used to be a welder as well, so another connection between us. And your story about the auto accident as a child too. That was really good as your intro to strength training. So
thanks for sharing all that, Matt. It's great.
Yeah, not a problem at all.
All right. Well, that should close it up.
We'll sign off. We'll look forward to the next time.
All right, man.
Matt.
Thanks.
Take
it easy.
Bye-bye.